what gold has actually been doing, it's not straight down, not even close. It is trading in a range. It's a broad range. The central tendency is $1,800 an ounce. The high end of the range is about $1,900 an ounce. The low end is $1,700 an ounce. It's a big range. That's 11% or 5.5% on either side of the central tendency. If you look at a chart, are there a couple peaks where it just kind of got over 1900? Yeah. A couple lows, 1678, where it went below 1700. Yeah. But they were all like a day or two, and then it kind of got back in that range. So that's important because gold is actually going sideways. It's going sideways around the central tendency of $1,800 an ounce with a lot of volatility, but it's staying in that range. So you look at the chart, what's fascinating is not, gold is down over that entire period from the peak. Yeah. But since the drawdown was mostly between August 8th, 2020 and the end of September 2020. That happened pretty quickly. And then it just got in this range I'm talking about, and up and down with a lot of volatility in the range. It's a paradox. On the one hand, you're kind of going sideways, but on the other hand, there's a lot of vol in the range. So if I'm not a day trader, I recommend gold for portfolios, and I think that's pretty well known. And I recommend a 10% allocation. That's pretty well known. But boy, if you were a day trader and you just bought the dips, you would have made a fortune in this because that pattern has persisted for really 14 months at this point. There are far more interesting things going on in central bank gold accumulation. One of the things I was looking at Russia, because Russia it was just like clockwork. They were buying, between 10 and 30 tons a month for almost 10 years. It was, they obviously had standing orders with the dealers. They don't want to disrupt the market. They were highly transparent. So, my friend Nabiuline, I call her the only central banker who actually knows what she's doing, was just like accumulate. And then China is the opposite. They've been accumulating, but completely non-transparent. I know who their agents are. I know how they do it. But, then every 5 years they say, we got 1,000 tons. Well, really, did you do that overnight, or have you been accumulating for 5 years and now you decide to tell us? Well, obviously it's the latter.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
But the Russians are kind of more interesting because you have a lot more information. And what the Russians did after 10 years of accumulation, they just stopped cold in around January 2021. And they didn't sell, but they just stopped buying, which is interesting. So I looked at their reserve position and I could see why, because they got gold to almost exactly 20% of their total reserves. For a round number, about 500 billion in reserves, of which 100 billion was in physical gold. So about 20%, about 2,400 tons, 2,500 tons, give or take. And they said that's enough. In other words, it's the same reason I say for an individual portfolio, 10% is enough. And then people say, well, Jim, if you think gold's going higher, which I do, why not 50% or 100%? Because that never makes sense. You never want to, you can be over allocated. You can be wrong also. You always have to factor that in. But they got to 20% and they just leveled off. They said, okay, we're there. And if you think about that, this is from a sovereign point of view. And this is how Putin thinks. Putin's two favorite sports are chess and jiu-jitsu, martial arts. So it kind of tells you where he's coming from. So what they did, and they did it brilliantly, they created the perfect hedge. There's no such thing, but as good as it gets, I'll put it that way. By the way, they've been selling treasuries, reducing their exposure to US dollar instruments. That has more to do with sanctions and possible freezes than it does with asset allocation, but that's a factor. But they still have a large chunk of treasuries. But what do? They export oil. How is oil priced in dollars? So they've got a big dollar exposure and dollar revenues, dollar inflows, whether they like it or not, because oil is a dollar denominated market. But now they've got a big slug of gold. So one of two things is going to happen. Either the US is going to maintain the value of the dollar, in which case gold will probably kind of continue to go sideways. You won't regret the gold, but you won't be burned on the dollar. But that aside, if you believe the U.S. will resort to inflation, which they will eventually, we're just not there yet. This is a timing issue. then what's going to happen to your dollar assets? They're going to be worth less. But what's going to happen to your gold? It's going to scream. It's going to go to the moon. So there they are. If the dollar's solid, they got a really nice diversified position. And if we resort to inflation, their gold's going to go up and the dollar price of oil is going to go up. So they've got a beautiful hedge. This is like a masterpiece of hedging and wealth preservation on a going forward basis, which is what a reserve position or sovereign wealth fund, as the case may be, is supposed to do. So the Russians have handled this in a masterful way.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.